3 countries.
6 shades of rosé.
Let's take a look at how Europe compares to the Antipodes down under. G'day there, I'm Aaron Brasher.
I'm Huon Hooke.
And this is all about rosé for our feature week. Let's start with rosé. It's got a fairly fascinating history. It's not just a breeze-in fly-by-nighter. There is long lineage of rosé around the world.
It has a history, and let's face it, any time of the day is rosé time. It's the ultimate adaptable wine. It goes with food, goes without food, goes with all sorts of things, all sorts of occasions, all sorts of moods.
Yeah, that's right. Look, I think rosé has that versatility. Certainly in France, 1 in 3 bottles consumed over there is rosé. So it actually, more rosé is consumed than white wine. So, look, I think the origins go back to France, but the New World, Australia, New Zealand, etc., have certainly come to the party when it comes to celebrating with rosé.
I'm told in the old days, back in ancient Greek and ancient Roman times, there was a feeling that if you drank undiluted wine, it would make you mad. Well, I think medical science has come a long way since then, Aaron, and we understand that undiluted wine can be pretty damn good and it doesn't do you a lot of harm if you don't drink too much of it. But I think there's always been a market for a lighter wine, a rosé, somewhere between white and red, chillable, food-friendly, and not something that will knock you over too quickly. It's got modest alcohol, generally.
Yeah, look, and there's probably a generation out there, Huon, that well and truly cut their teeth on Mateus Rosé from Portugal. Back in the 70s and 80s, it was in that very distinctive squat bottle. It's still out there. They're still selling a lot of Mateus, but yeah, that was the entry drug, I suppose, to people's rosé consumption. Yeah, and I think back to my early days of wine and things like Rockford's Alicante Boucher was a bit of a trendsetter for rosés. It was a sweeter style of rosé back in the day 25 years ago. But geez, haven't we progressed the style and the savouriness and the delicacy and the complexity of rosé over the last couple of decades?
Well, I remember lying around on the grass at the Horton winery in the Swan Valley drinking Horton's rosé, and remember that was a huge seller. It was really bright fuchsia pink colour, and quite sweet and quite tart. So
Cabernet based, I think.
It was Cabernet based, and frankly, it's very yesteryear these days. We've come a long way.
We certainly have. Okay, let's crack these open and taste them side by side.
We're starting off here with 2 Australian wines, then we've got 2 New Zealand wines and 2 French wines from Provence. And of course Provence has set the standard for the world, and it's the region that produces the most rosé in the world, and it's really setting the pace. And we could argue whether it is in fact the greatest example of rosé in the world, but plenty of other countries are doing very well in the market with rosé as well. And these 2 Aussie wines, both of them, Dominique Portet and SC Pannell, were both finalists in our Rosé of the Year 2025. Quite different wines, but really, really good examples. Is the world following the rosé style that Provence has set?
Yeah, it's a good question, Hugh. I think rosé, as we know, has grown exponentially in sales around the world. I can recall going into stores in the US back 7, 8, 9 years ago, and a whole wall of a shop being devoted to Provençal rosé. So I think Provence has set the standard. It's synonymous with rosé. People globally want to drink Provençal rosé, but I think that desire to drink Provençal rosé has also pushed prices of rosé to unrealistic levels. But what it has done is benefited the producers of Australia and New Zealand and beyond, that they're producing styles that are similar. They're more textural, they're more pale in colour, there's lovely aromatics, there's more savouriness. So I think Provençal probably set the mould around what rosé should and could taste like, and the rest of the world has followed to a fair degree.
Yeah, pale and dry. So the first one is Dominique Portet, and this is from the Yarra Valley, and it's a blend of the Bordeaux varieties because that's the heritage of the Portet family. Young Ben Portet is making the wines now. Basically, Cabernet Sauvignon, Cabernet Franc, Merlot, that suite of varieties that Bordeaux makes its reds out of, and its rosés out of course. Whereas the SC Pannell is Grenache from McLaren Vale. On the back label, Steve Pannell describes it as a Van Gris style. So in other words, very pale as you can see, so it's more like a Van Gris or a grey wine style than a pink wine style.
I really like both these styles of rosé. The Portet's got lovely fragrance and prettiness, probably from those Cabernet elements. It's quite floral. And then on the palate, there's some juiciness and there's some upfront fleshiness in the fruit, but then again, this lovely dryness and savouriness that kicks in and shapes the palate. I think it's a delicious style of wine.
I think it's a real risk when you're using Cabernet and the Bordeaux varieties, because if you harvest those grapes early, the wine can taste really green and grassy, and that snow pea, pea shoot character is very unattractive to me in rosé, but they managed to avoid it quite happily in this wine. It's much more savoury, as you say. It's complex. It's got a lot happening. I think there's a bit of barrel fermentation involved, which helps with the texture and with the complexity, and probably oxidises a bit of that greenness out of the fruit, if there is any there. They do two rosés. The Fontaine is the cheaper one. This is the dearer one, and I think this is really very smart example of modern Aussie rosé.
It's a very sophisticated style. The Pannell Rosé, Grenache based, or 100% Grenache, it's just got a lovely vibrancy to it. It's probably a little more crisper and crunchier in style. That there's a real line of almost a grapefruit pithiness running through it, and just right white stone fruit. So it's got some real tension and tautness to it, but again, delicious complexity, dryness, savouriness, and real presence and length on the palate.
What I like about both of these, but especially the Pannell, is that it's not shrill, simple, single-minded fruit. You don't just taste raspberries, or just taste cherries, or just taste strawberries. And the dryness, the slight grip on the finish,
some phenolics at play,
helps making it an appetising wine. It makes you want to reach for a plate of charcuterie or something.
Next, we have two of the rosés from New Zealand. One from Marlborough, and the other one from Central Otago, of course. And I suppose the commonality here is that both have Pinot as the dominant variety. The Two Rivers, it has a couple of other varieties in there. And I suppose with the first rosé there, Huon, the thing that strikes me is the colour.
It's got quite a tint of purple in it, isn't it? And it's not exactly a deep colour, but it's a very bright colour. That is a classic rosé colour of the fresher style, rather than the more developed colours that we might have seen in the previous two wines.
That colour, it is that old school pinkish in colour, quite taut and tight acidity carrying it as well. So, it's an enjoyable, very drinkable style of rosé.
A little sweetness there and plenty of acidity, as you say. And New Zealand, obviously, cooler climates, high acid in the grapes. They often leave a bit of residual sugar to balance that acidity, and that's a good example. It's a well-balanced wine. But the Terra Sancta is a different style, much more complex. It's barrel fermented, so it's a bit more like the Pannell style. It is the rosé in New Zealand that figures on our classification, so it's got a bit of history to it.
Shall we move on to the last two wines of this little rosé bracket? And we have two from Provence. We've got the Aix from Aix-en-Provence and Domaine Tempier Rosé. So both Grenache-based wines, and both displaying the fairly classic Provençal rosé colours.
The classic varieties of Provence, Grenache, Cinsault, Mourvèdre, the three grapes that are certainly in Domaine Tempier. And when I think of French rosé, I think this is considered widely around the world as being one of the benchmarks of French rosé, if not the benchmark. It's from Bandol, but Bandol has its own appellation, but it is part of Provence, so we can correctly say they're both Provençal wines. I think the Aix wine, but this is a really widely distributed wine you can find in a lot of places, and to me that's the classic modern rosé colour from Provence. Very pale, and just slightly off pink, so it's tending a little bit towards perhaps onion skin, or not quite as bright, and certainly no purple in that wine colour. As for the nose, lovely. Grenache, it smells like Grenache. It's got the bit of spice, a bit of dried cherry, dried strawberry.
I went straight to the palate then, because what it does again is have that lovely savoury dryness. It has real drive, red fruits, potpourri kind of element in there as well. But again, a little bit of grip on the finish just shapes it very nicely. Again, I think what we're looking for in this sort of style is that savouriness, that grip, that texture, and texture runs right through that wine.
So, shall we taste the Tempier? This is, by many people, consider this the ants' pants in French rosé. It's perhaps a little deeper in colour than your classic, perhaps the normal rosés from the largest number of them, I think, are more like the Aix in colour, but this one is a little deeper, but it's still light. And the rosé nose of that is just beautifully fragrant and floral. It's got all sorts of interesting aromas happening there. flowers and spices and dried herbs.
Yeah, it's fairly classic aromas with those lifted florals. There's red fruits, there's sort of just ripe cherries and raspberry, but not too sweet in that sort of vein. And then the palate again is all about drive of fruit. There's a real citrus tang to the acidity, but again, textured, layered, mouth-filling and long on the palate.
It's very clever the way they use a bit of sweetness in that wine, because that and the Two Rivers are probably the ones that are showing a discernible sweetness to me, but it's beautifully balanced. It's just lifting the fruit on the palate without being obviously sweet. And if you serve that at fridge temperature, you wouldn't notice that, I don't think.
Yeah.
So Aaron, if you're on a desert island and you only had one rosé to see you through a hot, sweaty summer, which one would you choose out of this 6?
6 great examples of rosé. I'm mindful of what's happening in the world of wine and oversupply, and being a patriotic Aussie, I would do my part and over-index on the Australian rosé. And I'll tell you what, it's splitting hairs, but I'd probably go the Portet. I really like that style of rosé. I think as long as there's a decent supply of charcuterie and fresh oysters on that island, the Portet rosé all the way. All right, Huon, I'm going to throw it back your way. What of these 6 wines would you choose if you're stuck on that desert island? Also, you only had one food choice. What would you pair it with?
Oh, geez, ask the hard question next, won't you?
That's what I'm here for, Huon.
Look, I really think that I like your line on Drink Aussie, and I do love the Pannell style. That is the wine I would choose. I find it's got guzzleability. Can I use that word?
I think that's a technical term we can use, Huon.
Thank you.
Nice.
Thank you. Guzzleability. And what would I have it with? Well, if I was on a desert island, I would be hoping that there were a few oysters clinging to the rocks there. I'm not sure how you'd break them open and smash them open with another rock, perhaps.
Yep. Primitive style. Like it. Rosé, it's here to stay. It's had an incredible journey over the last decade or more of popularity growth. The thing about rosé is it actually brings a whole next generation of consumer, of wine drinker into the wine category. So I think rosé has a role to play very much in getting the next gen of drinker coming along. What I think people with rosé can do though is progress through the styles, from the easier drinking, more smashable, guzzleable styles of rosé, through to the more sophisticated and layered and complex styles. So, rosé, I think the style appeals to a broad populace of consumer and drinker, and it's very versatile with food.
I think rosé is the ultimate democratic wine. Everybody can drink it, everybody can enjoy it. It's unpretentious. It's not the sort of wine that people get intimidated about. Everybody can enjoy rosé. It's chillable. It is the ultimate wine for the Australian climate in terms of the chillability and adaptability.
So there we go, there's a little wrap on rosé. We've had 6 rosés across 3 countries, 2 hemispheres, varying styles, all very delicious, all rated very well on the Real Review. And to dig in a little deeper into these rosés for the down and dirty on their styles and scores, go to therealreview.com.
Aaron, I know people who only drink rosé, and I think good on them,
yeah.
Good on them. Let's have it. Rosé, it's the ideal wine for your Australian summer.